Hello everyone, Ninjaland Games here. Today we're talking about the game design influences from history and art that came in and influenced Bloodborne. If you haven't seen my last video, check out my last video. We went over some of the first area, different influences that possibly affected the game designers, some of the symbolic references, philosophy. So in this next video, we're going to continue on that. Thanks for all the feedback, the like and the subscribes and the views. And we had a couple comments as well. In the last video, I questioned what does a pale blood mean? In the first part of the game, they don't really describe what pale blood is. And Philip in the comments said that, pretty much to sum it up, he said that the pale blood he felt like was a representation of the moon that turns red blood in the hunter's dream. And I would have to say that sounds like a pretty good theory. That sounds like I would accept that as being what it's referencing to, because you have the pale blood moon or a pale moon, and so when they talk about pale blood, that is a reference to the effect that's happening in the hunter's dream as you continue on through the game. Is it the hunter's dream is decaying or it's wearing down, but it also has connection to how that references into the Great Ones and how the Great Ones controlled the Plague of Beasts, or basically could have created the Plague of Beasts somehow. We're going to get into those different references. There's a lot of good videos coming out lately on Bloodborne and the meaning behind the game. I saw a couple this week, but I don't see a lot of them going into kind of the historical or cultural references, different novels and movies and just things that are out there. And also just covering game design. So I'm going to continue this series. So first off, we got in this first area of Bloodborne, I did notice some of the enemies. There's these hunchback type enemies, and also the area that you're in is very reminiscent of kind of the Gothic type architecture area. Some people reference also Bram Stoker's Dracula has a lot of similarities with Bloodborne. But also, I was thinking, so Hunchback of Notre Dame also might have some references in here too. We do have these Hunchback type enemies that remind me of some Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's very cool how a game like Bloodborne can have so many different references. You know, because each creature they create, each enemy they create, well, they're creating it from something that they want to emphasize. I mean, if you go back to in the Soul series, you can see how they're very creative and they could create all sorts of monsters if they wanted to. But in Bloodborne, they particularly chose particular monsters for their game design that came from kind of that 1800s style of novels and literature and basically fantasy. And so we see how they purposely chose out certain themes to emphasize and certain monsters to emphasize, to basically kind of collaborate it all into one overarching theme. And that's what's really cool about Bloodborne, is that it's basically taking a lot of the Gothic and horror genre, and it's kind of like collaborating so many different sources into one cohesive source and storyline. So look forward to that, but I'm going to continue moving forward. I kind of got on a tangent there, but let's keep moving forward with the Bloodborne analysis. So we talked about the Hunchback. Then we have Gastov? I'm not sure how his name's pronounced, Gaston. There's a lot of lore videos about him, so I suggest go and check out a video about them. But I just want to add to the fact that I had no clue that you could use him as a helper. A friend actually told me about this, and I went and checked it out, and I'll show you some video here of it. But basically, you can use him as a helper in the first boss, because he is a hunter at that point. And so he's still good at that point. When you get to the graveyard, he turns bad. And actually, his transformation kind of reminds me of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, we have him. He's a doctor, and he turns into a monster right before your eyes. And it's like he's kind of got this two-sidedness to him. Obviously, in the game of Bloodborne, he's just he's a beast. I mean, he's infected with the beast virus. Or the beast blood. So, I mean, he's not going to turn back to a good doctor. But it reminded me of that kind of motif that it had going in there. And that was just a very cool battle in the graveyard. I mean, there's so many cool things about that. Now let's move on to, as you travel through the game, you get to the chapel. And I thought that was really cool what they did in this game with the chapel, and how you're not sure like who's good or bad depending on the chapel or the clinic. You have the two places you can send people to, the chapel or the clinic, and you don't know who's bad. So I thought that was really cool. They had some twists and turns in that storyline, and I had a feeling that the chapel was going to be good just due to the fact that guy looked really creepy, and I knew that I know how FromSoft thinks, so they're probably trying to trick everyone. But I still sent people to both of them and end up with a very interesting turnabout with the storyline in that way. So that's very cool. But as you get to Old Yharnam, you see how it's all overgrown, and this area of the town actually, if you go into the lore, was the first area where the beast plague broke out and like pretty much was abandoned. And I thought it was really cool how it was overgrown an area. And then when you run into the guy with the Gatling gun, the hunter with the Gatling gun, oh man, that scene was just amazing, how he's just shooting down on you, and you just got to run for your life. That area was pretty cool, and you just kind of go through it. It's a nice little third area of the game. One of our themes is actually Buddhism and Shintoism in Japanese culture, and the idea of yearning. Because I saw a video that said that Yharnam actually is taking the word yearning and mixing it with like yearning village, and that actually would fit very, very well with the theme. And actually fits in really well with Buddhism or Shintoism. Shintoism's more doing with purification of like cleanliness, but also Buddhism has to do with yearning and your desires. A lot of it is focused on like what you're desiring in your life and like what you're yearning after. In the frame of Bloodborne, how yearning would fit in would be, and actually we see this with the fourth boss, the girl she's holding that pendant, and then she kind of like yearns after it. And when she yearns after it, that's when she transforms into the beast. And that's actually a very kind of Buddhist thought that if you're desiring the things of this world, or you're desiring things that are temporary, and you're yearning after them, that's like you're losing part of you. And that's where people get like suffering. Suffering comes from yearning after the temporary. But that's what I got from the scene, was that she was basically transformed into a beast because she loses her mind, I guess you would say. It's almost like you could see Bloodborne as this like symbolic reference of the world and how the world is in chaotic nature. How when you go into Yharnam, it's still in total chaos. And it's in chaos because people are yearning, all those different factors you'd say, that are corrupted, that are corruptible, that can corrupt the nature of the higher levels of man, and how people, when they yearn after these things, it just kind of like degrades on them. And in the Shintoism, that's kind of what the Shintoism is a lot about, is like this degrading factor of like degenerativism, and how basically in Shintoism is all about like purifying that out of yourself. Buddhism, we kind of have the idea of this yearning and how that's basically going to lead to suffering. And so you could kind of see Bloodborne as this basically some kind of symbolic representation of the world, and how like you enter this chaotic nature. I mean, kind of you're almost like reborn, you know, like when you're in the table and stuff, you kind of like get that blood transfusion. It's almost like you're kind of like waking up into this world of Yharnam. It's a completely new world to you. I kind of felt that way, because when you start the game, you create your character, and then you kind of freshly just basically thrown into this world, and the world's in chaos. And so that could be similar to someone's life, how they're basically born into a world that's in chaos of people that are yearning after things that aren't necessarily good for them. They create suffering in their life and create problems in their life. And so in Bloodborne, you're trying to basically battle through that. You're the hunter who's trying to like face all of these obstacles, trying to get through these things. And I don't know, I just think that's a really cool idea. That, I mean, if that was the intention of the creators, which I think there is a little bit of that in there. I mean, Bloodborne, like I said, has a lot of themes going on. It's not just one theme. There's a many themes going on. It has basically a kaleidoscope of themes going on. And I really got that from that fourth boss. So, and that was a really fun battle as well. Kind of, and the character design, the monster design also reminded me of something from like Princess Mononoke kind of vibe to it. The last thing I want to talk about was in that fourth boss, you start seeing the Cthulhu-like statues. And H.P. Lovecraft, you know, he came up with the Call of Cthulhu. And basically Cthulhu is supposed to be kind of like one of the great ones. He's basically considered an elder god. Basically, it's like these alien type beings, and this is the connection it has with Bloodborne. It's like these alien type beings that kind of, they're interdimensional, and so like they kind of have like a ruling over the earth, and they basically, you know, cause people to do things that are basically controlling people to do things or pulling people to do things. And honestly, this actually has a huge reference to like the evilness in the world. And so like H.P. Lovecraft, I think he was playing on that notion that we have of evil that exists and like the influence it has over the world. And he was trying to say that these elder beings in his storylines are trying to get like resurrected and that they were worshipped like a long time ago, and he has different references in there. We'll go over some more of the H.P. Lovecraft stuff in Bloodborne. In my next video, actually, it's going to be mostly focused on H.P. Lovecraft, but in the fourth boss, you start seeing these Cthulhu statues, and right when I saw that when I played the game, I was like, okay, we got some H.P. Lovecraft coming in here. These like some Cthulhu statues going on. As we go through this, you kind of hear what my experience with Bloodborne was, and honestly, is so far, this is the game of the year for me. We'll see how other games plan out, and there's some really good games coming out this year, but I had a really, special and cool experience playing Bloodborne this year, and I just got a lot out of just the different references they put in there. Anyways, thanks for watching today, and please check back for my next video, and see you later.